maybe a quick pivot, if you don't mind. One of the things I've been thinking about for years is the story of people's career development, how they got where they are. And I found that there are people who made it to where they are, but there's some advice that they wish they had gotten but never got, or some good advice they never took. So if you think about the best advice for your career in the helping profession, I don't even know how you describe your field. It's global transformation. I don't know if that's a job title. Um, but think about the best advice you never got or the best advice you never took, especially to folks who may be listening that are helping professionals or professionals who want to do more of what you guys teach about.
Yeah, I had to think about that pretty hard. You may want to push me harder, but
Okay.
I have always been, and actually turns out, so when I was director of counseling at Colorado State, we had the first student development center. We were going around campus. I had written a grant. We were down in Denver doing career placement of and support of psychiatric patients. And we're doing all kinds of things. I was so proud and pleased at our wide scope. And then I went to a conference up in Canada where all the counseling center directors were. I remember Clay Gherkin and Barbara Kirk, Kansas and Berkeley, just having a fit over what we were doing. Get back in your office and do what you're supposed to do. And that limit, so there's different views of what counseling is about, and advocacy is certainly central. And we also ought to remember that it's a white, if you look at the history, it's white males, white males, white males, and occasional. Best advice I didn't take, I have mixed feelings about this, but Sears at Stanford suggested I go to Oregon. And go after Stanford, go to Oregon? What's going on here? But I find out later that my hero, Leona Tyler, one of the first women presidents of APA, was there. And in fact, it took me, I had to finish my degree and get out and teach using her books, really to get myself in touch with her wisdom. This woman was light years ahead of the rest of the field, light years. And she caused me, by the way, a story I like to tell. Binet in France was using intelligence testing to find the strengths of people who did, in those times called feeble-minded, find out where they are, and he was focusing on what they could do. A guy named Terman, spelled racist, took that stuff and started, let's put people in pigeonholes. Well, anyway, I read Tyler's book, and then I went to the library and started reading the Stanford studies, which they were so proud of at Stanford. I found out they were lies. Sample selection was incredible. Terman and his assistants would go into a school and say, who are your brightest children? And one of his things that always stuck with me, they weren't these ragamuffins, immigrants or Jewish kids, etc. They were the sons and daughters of lawyers and et cetera, professors, et cetera.
Wow.
And the whole Stanford psychology department, unfortunately, taught me a lot, but they also taught me how to criticize. And that was very powerful for me. And then I did a Fulbright in Denmark and learned again that the media lies about socialism and what it can do for people. And luckily enough, I had the first psychoeducator in Paul Kirch, and he was very influential in me thinking about prevention and education rather than just therapy. So I hit some lucky spots, and going to Oregon would have probably been a good decision, but then somehow I survived. And if I had, John Crumbles has what he calls, talking about career, happenstance theory, and we do put it in our book, and that is the things you do by chance. You decide, I could go this way, I could go that way, and a whole chain of events happens just by chance. it's quite remarkable what chance factor brought that out in you, and you picked it up and did something with it.
Mm-hmm. I love that theory. That's a great use of that. Thank you.
Well, mine isn't as dramatic. I grew up in the age where, this is the women could be a secretary, a teacher, or a nurse going to college. Well, I eliminated nurse because they practically fainted when they took the blood, and I wasn't going to be a secretary. And I wasn't wild about teaching, but my parents said, you must be a teacher. So I had to kind of figure out how to go to school. And I didn't want to teach English, even though I liked writing and all that. I just didn't want to teach it. And I was a very good athlete. So I said, I'll major in two things I'm kind of interested in. I like health and I like physical education. And you can see where that later plays out in our therapeutic lifestyle stuff, which is my favorite thing. And then I also, they had a social work degree, and I admired a social worker, my mother's friend, and I have an undergraduate social work degree, which sort of, our work in counseling has a little bit of a flair of the environment and social work. You could see that. So that was my undergraduate degree. I taught physical education, but right away, what I liked about physical education were the kids that came. I had the high school kids that came to me, and the kind of counseling relationship that you start having with kids when you're the coach and when you're the, I don't know, they come talk to me, and then I got to know the counselor in the school, and I think this was happenstance. She was great, and I decided I'm going to be a counselor. I knew it sort of just happened, but it was kind of putting together pieces. And so I started at the University of Wisconsin, never knowing it was going to be one of the best programs in the country. I just walked in and I said, I would like to be a counselor, in those days. And I had good grades, so I went to graduate school in counseling. And then in Amherst, Massachusetts, I was always in college towns, and one of the professors that actually a good friend of ours was in the organizational development department, School of Education, and wanted to know if I was interested in leadership and administration and organizational development. Well, I happened to be in a program. I was loving it. I was teaching career development at the university. And the only way I could continue teaching if I was a student. And so I'd already had a master's degree, so how could I be a student, And again, it never occurred to me that I should getting a doctorate. It was like someone asked me, a doctorate? That just wasn't in my wheelhouse. I never thought about getting a doctorate, never. And it was like, oh, I can get a doctorate. Oh, maybe I can go to school some more. That's okay, I can do school well. So I just went to school, and I was able to keep this job working with college students, which I liked, career development. But that was never a plan in my life that I was going to get a doctorate. And that, I think, has influenced our work too, the work with systems, and which I did. And the interesting thing about it is my very first job as a organizational development specialist, the advisor sent me to Mexico City to work. The very first time I ever did a workshop alone, to go to Mexico City for 3 days and train Mexican women leaders in leadership. This was Dr. Ken Blanchard, who wrote 1 Minute Manager. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it sent me there at Mexico City. And so I did the leadership training. And then I thought, I've got another day in here. I think I want to do that listening stuff that I learned from Alan Ivey. So that was before we were married. So I learned the listening stuff and went and got the tapes, did listening. And it was not too long after that we got married. So anyway, I was divorced. He was divorced, and we got married. So anyway, it's a long story.
No, that's phenomenal.
A lot of it was sort of happenstance.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my interesting career, with physical education and with social work and with organizational development, sort of all in counseling, it all fit together in what we're doing now, in the things that we're both interested in.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Sort of great. Happenstance is a very good name for it.
It never ceases to amaze me that you talk to folks in school, and they're trying to figure out how to make their life unfold in a
it sometimes doesn't really, but just sort of, yeah.
Yeah, and when you talk to people whose lives have unfolded, and you admire them, you look up to them, and you try to make a plan from that, you realize that people were just following what was in front of them and making decisions, taking steps, working really hard. And so I think there's some luck involved, I guess, or chance or happenstance.
And I think you have to take a bit of a risk. You have to be a little bit confident and just say, well, and you have to know yourself. Gee, that's something I'd really like to do, or if there's something you don't like to do, you move away from that, but you move towards what you like to do and what you're good at. And I was good at working with people.
Hmm.
So.
She is.
She is. I feel it. It's actually an area I'm interested in, but I don't know if it's how realistic it is. I've written a little bit about it, is the how neuroscience informs career development, career identity development, and may aid in our, I think there's ways that we can assess people's identity differently to help them develop more clear steps moving forward in their career or job or whatever's next for them, based on how we know the brain works to integrate a sense of self through mechanisms of memory, early relationships and attachment, meaning making, that may take us a little bit further than ways we've been able to go before, but I guess that remains to be seen.
Stuff with that already?
Have you done research on it or done anything with that? That's interesting.
Just written some conceptual stuff. Haven't studied that yet, but that would be.
Yeah, you got a lot of studying.
I got stuff. You're right. Yeah. So, and in the meantime, I'm just enjoying talking to great people who have forgotten more about this field than I will ever know, and that's you guys. So.
I want to ask you, I think it's a joint question. We got the COVID, we're learning that you can do all kinds of meetings, therapy via TV, even telephone, but it's becoming really central. Mass General, for example, doesn't intend to do much face-to-face therapy anymore. So some new things are going to happen, and I wonder, what's going to happen to our field? What do you think is going to be next? And the thing is, I see your group is very much on the cutting edge. We've not mentioned, I think you're president of the Association for, what's the exact title?
Well, no presidency for me right now. So you might be thinking of Eric Beeson, president of the American Mental Health Counseling Association.
Yeah, that's right. That's
I had you mixed up.
Yeah.
Oh, mix me up with him anytime. That's high praise.
And he'll benefit too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions about how the field is going to progress and
evolve, which directions. Yeah.
I hope it evolves toward health. We shall see.
Health and wellness.
Health and wellness.
Health and wellness. As long as we keep neuro-oriented toward wellness and resilience and not new ways to pathologize people or new labels. And I think that's what our group is really fighting for, to make this person first.
Reacts, and this is where you can produce some change. The brain reacts more to fear than it does to positive things, no question. And how you're going to work with that amygdala, the bilateral amygdala, you'd like to see the more positive, optimistic part take action. But people love a lot of violence. Look at what's on TV hour after hour after hour. The media loves violence. Media loves things that are horrible because it sells, pain sells. So to get people thinking positive is a pretty big struggle we have ahead of us.
Yeah, I agree. And I think neuro really points the way for that based on how our reward center is geared. And yeah, we'll be doing some stuff on that upcoming. How our brains shift from a goal-oriented learning and memory to habitual and even compulsive learning or memory when we're under chronic variable stress, and how we sort of subject ourselves to that in these measured doses through the news and the people that we follow on Twitter and the barrage of bad news. So I definitely think there's going to be a countercultural movement that's necessary to move away from our fixation on digesting pain. So Well,
So,
that's
Should I-
quite a note, Daniel.
should I give my spiel for telehealth, COVID, and racist pandemics? This is and listening skills.
here comes
Virtual
the salesman. Here comes the
At
salesman. Salesperson.
Coherent Digital, but it's all free, and the students will love every single one of these lectures. Mike, Carl Delicate,
Be very
wonderful speakers.
specific. Be very specific about where it is to be found.
Coherent Digital is what it's called. And this is the title is Mental Health, COVID, and the Racist Pandemics and Listening Skills, a virtual conference. It was taking place July 30th.
Wow. Yeah, you just did that.
Very wonderful lectures were available for all counselors, and we got nothing but positive feedback. Every one of them was terrific. So I highly recommend them.
Yeah, that's really wonderful.
People, should I name some of the people just quickly?
Sure.
Okay, Carlos Zalicott is leading off. We have Larry Gerstein from Ball State University. We have Rita Chung and Fred Bemak. Again, they have a lot of work. They've done a lot of work with trauma, and it's excellent. They've got transforming a post-disaster model into a continuous disaster model. It was very good. It was good. And Lori Russell Chapin, who's in neuroscience, the need for social engagement in this new COVID era, how intentionality and neurocounseling strengthens the active listening process. And our former president of American Counseling Association, Cece Olatunja, talked about coronavirus, systematic police brutality, traumatic stress. She's worked with this a long time, and resilience, fostering cultural and what do you call it? I can't say it. Epistemic, if I say it right, justice and counseling. And then we have Martine LaRocha, who is telehealth child cultural psychotherapy. This is very good. It's got some specific strategies to use if you're doing child psychotherapy during COVID and racist pandemics. I mean, absolutely excellent. And then, of course, Al and I ended up.
This stuff is specifically designed for poor people.
Yeah, it's designed for these times right now. It's very, very current for everybody.
African Americans, minorities.
Yeah. And we talk about the universal power of the narrative and listening and tie it together. So I highly recommend it. Remember,
that's wonderful.
Columbia University students were supposed to be required to watch half a day. They watched the whole day, and they thought it was fantastic. And Daryl Wing Sue has wonderful students. So we got best feedback.
With
That's
no
terrific.
deliberate advertisement. We had 850.
We really didn't advertise.
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Produced that many. I'm amazed.
Wow. Yeah, that's tremendous.
It was very good. And even assigning a couple of these for people to watch, I mean, I think it's wonderful. Professors will find it very, very wonderful. Very good.
Yeah. And I'm happy to share a link with folks about that. I think that sounds terrific.
It is very good.
And thank you for being patient and remembering to come back around to that.
I thought I have to give a little plug.
It took patience.
Yeah.
So producer, and she's one of the producers, and she's
that's phenomenal.
With Roby. I don't know if you remember her. She's worked with Micah Training, and she's worked with different companies, but she's always been working in this area of counseling. Knows all these folks.
Oh, that's very cool.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm elated and really excited to get to have spoken with you today. Is there anything that I haven't asked, or anything that you want to say that I should just be listening to before we sort of end up our time?
Well, I think you hit the things that we feel some passion about for sure. I wonder what else we might want to say. Last chance.
Last chance. I think we're talking for an hour. That's about it. Anyway, it was delightful talking to you, Chad. We certainly appreciate the questions and the discussion this morning.
Oh.
Yeah. And
Thank you, Mary.
We always learn something, don't we, dear?
Okay, I guess advice though that, one thing that would be very important in my career is finish the job, get to work on time, early, listen to people and what they're doing to get things right. And if you finish the job on time, you'd be surprised where you'll go.
Yeah.
Be committed and put some work in, persistence. In other words, these very old values. I was going to, and Mary and I are overworkers, but that's what it takes.
We always get our assignments in early.
Oh, yes.
And sometimes we say good work brings more good work. Which we sometimes have more than enough, but
Yeah.
Working hard, persistence, diligence.
Although, and let's face the fact, I'm just a little bit crazy. I'm the oldest person at conventions now. I still writing,
He
still
tried
presenting.
he tried to retire, and that was a big failure. So he flunked retirement
But
twice.
the thing is, it really keeps alive.
Yeah.
Keeps us alive.
So we'll soon be starting work on the 10th edition of Intentional Interviewing and Counseling pretty soon.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
There could be more neurosciences. Oh, it was the first textbook
with neuroscience.
With neuroscience.
There'll be more neuroscience.
As far as we can tell, well, certainly the first one for in counseling. And we think there's going to be more, and we've got plans the next time to do more. So telehealth.
Wow.
And other stuff like that, and you're going to be at the center of it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what comes next from you both.
Well,
it's just a joy to sense your energy.
Okay.
All right. Well,
appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you again. You guys take care.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Peace.